my infernal blessings. We are back with another video. All right, before I begin, just a couple quick messages as usual. Again, time is winding down to book a 2024 yearly forecast reading. I'll be doing that for a couple more weeks, and then that will shut down until end of this year, going into next year. All right, so if you want to book a 2024 yearly forecast reading, shoot me an email at khnum19@gmail.com. Please put in the subject title of your email, yearly forecast reading, so I can clearly see that. All right, I'm trying to get those all booked and set up, so they're all done by the time I stop doing them. Also, I want to put out there for those watching this video, for those that watch my channel regularly, if you've emailed me, the month of December and January, I've received a gang of emails. So you might have gotten an email from me in the last day or two, from an email you might have sent as far back as early to mid-December. Yes, early to mid-December. And if it took me 3, 4, or 5 weeks to get back to you, it's because there was so many emails in my inbox. Some of them went to the junk box, and some of them I just overlooked. So I did reach out, I believe, to most of them that I caught, because some of you contacted me for readings and consultations. And as I said, December and January was an extremely busy month. So I did do my best to try to, look and thoroughly comb through my emails to see which ones I missed. And I did reach out to, I believe, all the ones I caught. So again, if I didn't reach out and I still missed your email and you sent it back in December or something like that, resend me an email. It's not that I've ignored you or didn't respond to your email. It's just for whatever reason I did not see it for what I just mentioned. All right. So again, if I didn't respond back to you, resend me an email, and I will get back to you, and hopefully catch it right out the gate and get back to you. All right. If you're interested in signing up for classes, okay, the way to sign up for the classes I do offer 3 private classes every month on Patreon, okay, including a group ritual we do together at the end of the month. So the way to sign up for my classes is to go to the official Primordial Chaos Patreon page, patreon.com/Baniti, Baniti, join tier 3. That gives you access to all of the 3 private classes that I do every month and the group ritual. It also gives you access when you join. You don't just get access to the classes from the day you join moving forward. You get access to everything in the archives, which is going back almost 4 years. You get access to all the ritual work, the class work, and you get access to all the ongoing series of classes. And I say ongoing because they're constantly, I rotate them and keep adding content to those classes and adding new classes. It's a lot of work on there. Right? There's a lot of information on there, a lot of videos on there. And again, on the Patreon, I go in depth and detail a lot more than I do on YouTube, because as I said before, you have to be careful what you say and what you do on YouTube. So I go much more in depth on the Patreon page. So again, if you want to sign up for classes, go to patreon.com/Baniti, Baniti, tier 3, and that will give you access to all the classes. All right. Mark your calendars just to keep putting it out there and pumping it out there. The 7th annual Journey of the Black Adept Conference, which will be October 2024 of this year. It'll either be the 3rd or the 4th week in October. I'll have more info on that as I get later in the year. So just mark your calendars down, prepare for that. This will be our 7th year doing it, and it'll be again, as of right now, in Hollywood, Florida, Cultural Expressions. All right. Also, don't forget to check us out on Instagram, Primordial Chaos 9, all one word. Check us out on Facebook, Primordial Chaos, 2 words on Facebook. And I upload all this new YouTube content also to the Facebook page. check the Primordial Cast podcast out, which is available on Spotify and all major podcast platforms. The direct link to the podcast, my contact email address to book a reading or a consultation, the direct link to the Primordial Chaos Patreon page to sign up for classes. All of that is in the description box of this video that you are watching right now. All right, I told you I would try to be, sometimes I get tied up, I get busy. I would try to be consistent with this series on Jesus, the character, the individual spoken of in the Bible. And again, I do this, one, for those that just want the knowledge, this particular subject, but this is especially geared more towards those that are maybe coming out of religion or came from that religious background. Because you might say, yeah, this doesn't really apply to me. That's fine. It may not be for you, but this is for everybody as a whole, because even if you're outside of that religious paradigm, you can utilize this information to teach and educate. Okay? So this is more focused on people who came through those religious dogmas and are now on the occult, and maybe they're more newer and they're making that transition. It'll shed a lot of clarity. It'll shed a lot of clarity on their transition into this path. Okay? So I want to talk about, I mentioned in one of the previous videos, in this video I want to talk about how was Jesus able to perform miracles and heal and do all these great works of wonders as the Bible records, right? I told you I would talk about this. Where did he get his quote-unquote magical healing powers? Because when you read the scriptures and you read the stories, the Pharisees, the scribes and the elders thought he was some type of demon or devil. They believed he was practicing witchcraft. That's how he had the ability. How was he able to cure the blind, the sick, heal leprosy, and do all these things, walk on water? Right? Is this some type of trick, magical trick, or an illusion? How was he able to do these things that the Bible describes? Well, the Bible and religion dumbs down a lot of aspects of the story that are missing pieces. And again, this is a short tutorial, so I don't have time to get into all the lost books of the Bible, which there are a bunch, which you can easily research and find copies and find these books and do your research, whether it's the Lost Gospel of Thomas, the Gospel of Barnabas, which is very different when it comes to the four synoptic Gospels of what we know as the New Testament in the Bible, especially the whole crucifixion story. That's a video in itself, so I won't talk about that here. But the 222 books or chapters of Barnabas paints a different picture. Now, the Council of Nicaea and other so-called religious Council of Trent, all these different councils were set up to get together, and these men decided which books they would keep as legit and which ones they would omit. So this is why we have what is in front of us today when it comes to the Bible or the books or the scriptures, of what they have determined or what their criteria is to accept something as authentic or not. So having said that, there are many lost books of the Bible with different stories about the Jesus character, who he was and what he did. And it paints a whole different picture. I just want to focus on the aspect of this Jesus, of how he was able to perform what people label miracles, right? That's what they're called in about. Oh, it's a miracle. He did all these. Well, let's first retrace our steps, because there's very little known about this character Jesus outside of a couple of key moments in his early life. When you read the stories, you see the birth, his birth recorded in Bethlehem. Then you don't hear anything about pretty much this child until he is 12 years old, right? And prior to 12, we know he had to flee Bethlehem in fear of King Herod, because King Herod had heard that a Messiah king was born, and he felt his kingdom was threatened. So as we know the story, he sent out an army of soldiers to slay all newborn infants at that time. So when the quote-unquote Holy Family of Mary, Joseph, and Jesus were in danger, they fled to Egypt. Seems like a lot of people flee to Egypt when there's chaos or problems. After that, we don't really hear anything about this Jesus character until he pops up in the Temple of Jerusalem at 12 years old after coming back from Egypt. And he's teaching the scribes and the elders in the temple, and they're amazed by his knowledge, his teachings. The question is, where did he gather all that knowledge that a 12-year-old boy was just amazingly impressing and amazingly teaching a doctrine that these scribes and elders had never heard? They didn't know where this knowledge was coming from. Okay? So we see that story in the temple at 12. Then the next thing we see basically is the last 3 years of ministry of his life, from his baptism to him being arrested, crucified, and then resurrected on the next day after, 3 days later, so-called, after his crucifixion, and then ascends into heaven according to the stories. So we're really only getting about 3+ years of an individual who they said lived to 33 years old. Now, the whole 33 years old and the crucifixion, the birth, death, and resurrection, that's all Masonic in nature. The 3 degrees of the Blue House in Freemasonry are represented by those 3 things: birth, death, and resurrection. Now, the highest degrees you can go in Masonry is 33. Okay? There's the number 3. They say Jesus gave up the spirit or the ghost at 3 p.m. on a Friday on the cross. Okay? And then rose 3 days later. There's the 33 again. But be careful, because there's trickery in that, because when you add the 33 years old, and then you add, you see the 3 there again in what I was just describing, and you have the 33. And then if you add 33 and 33, you have the 66. 6 and 6 is 12. 1 and 2 is you're back to the 3. Okay? That birth, death, resurrection is your story. It's basically telling you the journey and the stages of this journey you will go through as you travel this path. Okay? So that's kind of a little bit, there's more, but that's kind of a small detailed breakdown of this whole, why was he 33? 3 days. The 3 was there for a reason. Now, how, to get back on the subject matter, I kind of only veered a little bit to the right because it was just rolling with the dialogue that I was talking about. That was it. But back to the topic. So then we see the last 3 years or major years of ministry of his life up until those 3 points: birth, death, resurrection. Okay? So when we look at this character who the Bible says lived until they were 33 years old, we have maybe recollection 3.5 years of this individual's life. What was going on the other 30 years that he was alive? Okay? Well, they kind of tip you off because, again, when you see him at birth, then you don't see him till 12, then he disappears from 12 to 30, because there are a lot of lost books of the scriptures. There's a lot of research information and data out there that proclaim that he studied the mystery schools in ancient Egypt. It's not recorded in the Bible, nor do Bible folks want you to know that. Because a lot of the things that we describe as miracles in the Bible that Jesus did, those were things pharaohs and practitioners of magic were doing on a regular basis. It wasn't that mesmerizing to them. Okay? Excuse me. They were able to tap in to their divinity and reach their potential by understanding these sacred mysteries. So to heal, to levitate, to use alchemy, yes, was amazing to those who knew nothing about it, but this was a common, ordinary practice in ancient Egypt. There's a lot of information and data to suggest that he never made it to the cross. It's a whole other story, which I'll take that from the book of Barnabas, which he gives a totally different account of the crucifixion. There's no signs of, well, as I said, you see all the different things there with the crucifixion, this, that, and the other, in the books of Barnabas, painting, again, a whole different story or a whole picture. But these so-called miracles that are attributed to Jesus in the Bible, these were common everyday practices in ancient Egypt. Pharaohs were healing, were levitating, right? Were taking care of themselves, putting themselves in, to the best of their ability, in tip-top shape. Mentally, they were in a sound and a strong mind. So all these things that, whether it was so-called people at that time or people today who read these works, again, healing the blind, healing the sick, and doing all other types of works. Where did he get this power? This is why I did a video a while back. Was Jesus a black magician? Yes, he mastered the arts of magic. It's clear. Anybody that wants to deny that is foolish, because it's all encoded in your Bible. It's there. You just got to look. Okay? So there was nothing really, when you compare it to the mystery schools of Egypt, there was nothing really super dazzling, for quote unquote, that this character Jesus was doing. Now, let me give you another picture. Let's just say I go to a place that you don't know exists, and I pick up something or some level of information that's only a once in a lifetime that can be passed to down to somebody, or once in a lifetime generational thing that is filtered down to somebody. If I have that, right, and you don't, and I come to you and say this, that, or the other, look, this is the way to go. Or look, this is the direction you want to head in. When the choice is made for you and you're not making it yourself, then you don't see these things. Okay, so walking on water is a high form of levitation. Healing somebody by touch, and I'm sure there's many other methods involved in it, that's something that was very common in the ancient Egyptian mystery schools. Okay? And the list goes on and on. So this is nothing new, though it appears new. Because again, to get you to think, and again, I don't have the time. Like I said, this is a short tutorial. You can go research some of these lost books of the Bible. There's many books that are out there painting and opening the door to a whole nother aspect of this person they call Jesus. There are some lost books that says he was married to Mary Magdalene and produced children. This was the whole seed of the Holy Grail, which I'll talk about that at another time. So, because this is not what I want to kind of stay focused, on the topic, of what we're talking about. Okay. So, what people in religion, ordinary people, even scholars and researchers are attributing to Jesus as being very unique and something that never happened before, that's not correct. Okay? It's no different when you look at stories And some of us have the ability to heal ourselves and others, right? Which, to the average person who may not be on any path of enlightenment or spirituality, that might sound crazy to them. Okay, but it's very real. Okay? But to an outsider, again, it might look strange. It might look like, what is this? So, there's a reason why you have very minimal history on the life of the person they call Jesus in the Bible. Like I said, you just see pretty much from birth to 30 is very low key. You don't hear much. You don't see much. And the question is why? Because they did a poor job out of hiding the fact that a lot of stuff in the Bible, including this Jesus story, is connected strongly with ancient Egypt. They don't want you to see that. Because then it's going to open your eyes to a lot of the crap that they have done intentionally to keep you asleep. Okay? They don't want to bring attention to that. So the question I would pose to somebody who might be in opposition to this: where is the documented history? Or, because we know it's not in the Bible, or is there some other documented history that you accept as whatever you claim is acceptable or legit or not? Okay? The question that poses here, which is very important to think about: where can I find the information of the rest of the story of the rest of the years of this character Jesus' life? Where do I find it then? Because I find it very odd that you're supposed to just accept those couple incidences and that's it and call it a day. And that's just not the case, people. That's just not the case. Okay? I would encourage you to do your own further research on this, because there's a lot. And I'm sure whether you Google it, you search for books, there's going to be so much information on this topic, on Jesus and some of the occult meanings and representations of some of these stories, etc. All that stuff is accessible. So I want you to do your research. I want you to put together some of the key points we talked about in this video, and you make your call. Okay? You make your call to see, engage where you're at. Because it's the same thing with Moses. Moses, why is it two key prophets like Moses and Jesus, who clearly had direct access to ancient Egyptian teachings, who clearly lived amongst the people and received this knowledge because he shared recently some of that knowledge? Okay? When I say he shared, if you listen closely to some of the things, well, I don't say he recently shared, but when you're reading the Bible, it's very important you pay close attention to the context and how it's related. Because this is why I said in the previous video, in one of the previous videos, the way he answered questions, the way he addressed things, he was kind of tipping people off that, look, I'm not in alignment with the shit that you're in alignment with. So there are a lot of books and information out there that suggest he was a master of the ancient mystery schools of Egypt. He learned the arts of healing. He learned the arts of alchemy. He learned the art of levitation, fasting, all of these things. The Essene community. This is why you read the story. He was sent to John the Baptist, right? Who prepared the way. He's considered the one who prepared the way and the coming for the Messiah. Okay? And John the Baptist belonged to a strict spiritual and religious community called the Essenes, who were mystics, who knew about a lot of this information, who knew about the real Messiah. and knew how to decipher the signs and symbols of his coming. Who do you think the three wise men were that were guided by what? Quote unquote, the North Star. Who were these three wise men? Okay? We'll talk about that another time. So, point is this, as I wrap this video up. Point is this, it's real simple. What most people think are just phenomenal miracles that Jesus did and was recorded in the Bible. Yes, my point is simple. He received those sacred mystical teachings of alchemy, magic, and how to work that while while he was in Egypt for X amount of years. That's my point. So on the spectrum of things, and an Egyptian mystic looks at that like that's nothing really special. It's great. Not only, don't get me wrong, it takes gift and discipline to have powers like that. But what we're labeling as some infallible, spooky power, we have that same power. Okay? All of us. That's the point. There's nobody listening or watching this video right now that doesn't have that same ability or power. You just think you don't because you've been programmed to accept yourself as failure. Okay? And you got to work through that red tape. So, again, nothing really that mystical and deep. There's an explanation to it. So keep that in mind. He definitely received his sacred teachings while he was in ancient Egypt. All right. Other than that, that's what I got for you on this video. If you need to reach out to me, khnum19@gmail.com. If you want to contact me for a reading or a consultation. If you want to sign up for Primordial Chaos for the Patreon classes, which is where I do the 3 private classes every month on Patreon, go to patreon.com/Baniti, Baniti. Tier 3, that's the tier you want to join. That will give you access to the 3 private classes I do on Patreon every month, along with the group ritual. If you want to check out the, let me back up, the social media pages on Instagram, Facebook, Primordial Chaos 9, Instagram, Primordial Chaos 2 words on Facebook, and also, if you need to contact me, my contact email address, the direct link to the Primordial Chaos podcast, the direct link for the Patreon classes, again, along with my contact email to book a reading or a consultation. All of that information is in the description box of this video that you are watching right now. All right, infernal blessings, and we will talk soon.